Does anyone like to feel out of control? No. No. You do, Alice? Well, I think deep down inside, no one likes to feel out of control. Now, I know you could argue with me. You could talk about skydivers. You know, jumping out of an airplane, what sense does that make? I don't know. Or, you know, those who like to ride those roller coasters, you know, has that flying feeling, and you go over something that feels like you're still going to go. Or any number of those insane rides that they have down at parks. You know, I'm sure everyone has at least one of those rides where they go, how am I going on that? You got one of those, Linda? Yeah, I thought so. We all do. But the fact is, none of those things are without control. In fact, all of those things are very controlled. When you go skydiving, you have time to sit down, they tell you what you need to know and what you need not to know, what you need to do and not do. You know all of those, the ropes have been tested, they can handle the weight, the material is all there. Is there a spare one if the first one doesn't go? No? Okay. Well, yeah, we hope there is. I'm not going either way, so I don't really care. But, and on those amusement rides, you know, the roller coasters, there are little detectors all the way along, so if it starts to get out of control, it sets the brakes off automatically. You know, there are certain restrictions you have to be so tall to get on for your safety. So all those things are really controlled. They just give you the illusion that you're out of control. And if you didn't know that you really were in control, you probably wouldn't do some of those things. Well, you may want to argue that those who abuse drugs and alcohol like to be out of control. But I would suggest that it's just the opposite. Their lives are so out of control, so difficult, that they'll try anything to avoid it. It's their way of trying to control a situation that is just so uncomfortable in their lives. Alcohol and drugs really gives a false and temporary sense of control. By escape, by avoidance, by numbing. With all those things, we pretend to be out of control. We like to pretend to be out of control. Yet with God, things are exactly the opposite. We often live under the illusion that we are somehow in control with God. We do that in any number of ways. If we believe the right things, if we do the right things, if we avoid the wrong things, if we're nice, then God has to bless us. Then we got control of God. All we have to do is do this list of things and avoid this other list. We could look at prayer as a way of trying to get God to do what we want. Or we can even read the Bible like W.C. Fields. Looking for loopholes. Looking for loopholes. Now, what got me thinking about all of this was when someone had said, the Spirit does not appear on cue. The Spirit does not appear on cue. Seems simple enough, and sometimes we expect God to appear on cue based on what we want. Those disciples had seen the ascension, and Jesus said to them before he left, go back to Jerusalem, hang out there for a while, until something happens. Well, they didn't have anything else to do, so they went back to Jerusalem. They waited and they waited and they waited, not knowing what they were waiting for or when it would happen. How long would you wait with those kind of instructions? Not very long, but they did. They waited, our tradition says 10 days. Then the Spirit crashed in with the force of a hurricane. Or if you want to be more pointed, a tornado. Ever tried to control one of those things? Not very long way. It's a powerful image of God. Bill Bryson tells how his grandfather was awakened one night as the house was shaking. It sounded like 1,000 chainsaws. Pictures fell off the walls, the clock off the mantle. And so he got out of bed and he looked out the window, but he couldn't see anything. It was pitch black. So he went back to bed. Well, the next morning when he got up, the sun was shining, and they went outside, and they noticed trees were everywhere. They did see their old Chevy. It was right where it was, without a scratch. But the garage that was over it was gone. Someone later in the day brought back their mailbox from 2 miles away in a field with just a little dent in it. They never did find the garage. The image of a hurricane, a tornado, is a powerful image. God is a powerful God who cannot be controlled. Now, as we have that image of God, when in our own lives have there been kind of like hurricanes or tornadoes that have come into our lives and turned everything upside down? We've had those times, right? Those times when everything that makes sense is now gone. Things that held you firm are shattered. It takes a hurricane of the Spirit to overpower the kind of pain and destruction that we sometimes feel in our lives. That's what Pentecost is about. It's about power. It's about unpredictability. The Celtic Christians, when they talked about the Spirit, didn't use the image of a dove. They used the image of a goose. It's been a long tradition in Ireland. For the Roman Catholic Church, imagine the Holy Spirit. They imagine that graceful, peaceful little dove. You can almost feel it land on your head or your shoulder. But imagine what it'd be like for a goose to be flying overhead, ready to land. Honking and loud, getting your attention. The image of a wild goose brings to us a noisome, bothersome creature. It jars us out of our complacency. Sometimes we need that kind of an image to take us away from our overly safe ways of living. One preacher said, "How many times can you sing, 'There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place,' without your blood sugar reaching diabetic levels?" When the Spirit comes in the Bible, it never seems to come in sweet and safe places. God calls the prophets to speak words that were bold, oftentimes dangerous. When Jesus preached his first sermon, he quoted Isaiah, "For the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor, to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of God's favor." Hear what he's saying? Destroy the status quo. Our God is often a dangerous God. Sometimes, though, we approach God like a forester does a controlled burn. We see the problem, but we got it. We'll do this little burn. Well, as you know, controlled burns do not always stay controlled. That's how it is with God. With God, there is often a wildfire. I like what Andy Dillard says when she talks about those who come to church to worship. In her book of essays, Teaching a Stone to Talk, she writes, "On the whole, I do not find Christians sufficiently sensible of conditions. Does anyone have the foggiest idea of what sort of power we so blithely invoke? Or, as I suspect, does one not believe a word of it? The churches are children playing on the floor with chemistry sets, mixing up a batch of TNT to kill the morning. It's madness to wear ladies' hats, velvet hats to church. We should be wearing crash helmets. Ushers should issue life preservers and signal flares. They should lash us to our pews. For the sleeping God may awake someday and take offense, or the waking God may draw us out to where we can never return." How do you come to church? Do you come expecting order and calmness and a sweet, sweet spirit? Pentecost says, watch out, watch out. But then if you're dealing with major issues of life and death, of sanity, of safety, of food, a place to stay,
do you really want a safe, easygoing God? You need a powerful God to deal with the powerful things that are in your life. A few years ago, AT&T had a major snafu in New York City. When electrical demand peaked, they would shift to backup generators. But one day they did that and something went wrong. They switched over and there was a power surge and it knocked out a number of rectifiers, which then had a blackout in a lot of New York City and affected 3 major airports and over 1,000 flights. Now usually technicians would quickly jump in and fix the problem. But on this particular day, they didn't. While alarm bells rang, the technicians were attending a training session on how to handle an emergency. We think we can do it. We think we got it figured out. We think we know the timing. God's Spirit is bigger. If we understand God correctly, control should be the last thing on our minds. In The Silver Chair, one of the Chronicles of Narnia, C.S. Lewis writes about Jill, who meets the lion. We'll read you some of that. Jill meets Aslan the lion. Jill is dreadfully thirsty, and she sees a stream bright as glass. And beside it lay the lion, the crushed figure who says, "If you are thirsty, you may drink." Jill stands frozen in fear. The lion asks her, "Are you not thirsty?" "I'm dying of thirst," said Jill. "Then drink," said the lion. "May I? Could I? Would you mind going away while I do?" said Jill. The lion answered this only by a look and a very low growl. And as Jill gazed at the motionless bulk, she realized that she might as well have asked for the mountains to be moved aside for her convenience. The delicious rippling noise of the stream was driving her nearly frantic. "Will you promise not to do anything to me if I come?" said Jill. "I make no promises," said the lion. Jill was so thirsty now that she, without knowing it, took a step closer. "Do you eat girls?" she said. "I've swallowed up girls and boys, women and men, kings and emperors, cities and realms," said the lion. Didn't say it as if it were boasting, or as if it were sorry, nor as if it were angry. It just said it. "I daren't come and drink," said Jill. "Then you will die of thirst," said the lion. "Oh dear," said Jill, coming another step closer. "I suppose I must go and look for another stream." "There is no other stream," said the lion. It never occurred to Jill to disbelieve the lion. No one who had seen this stern face could do that. Her mind suddenly made itself up. It was the worst thing she had ever done. But she went forward to the stream, knelt down, began scooping up water in her hand. It was the coldest, most refreshing water she'd ever tasted. You didn't need to drink much of it, for it quenched your thirst at once. God is not always a safe God. There are risks. Now, there's lots of metaphors for God. We often like the safe ones. We put little doves on our refrigerators. I've yet to see someone who had a goose on theirs. Inside me. Wind, I think, is a really great metaphor for God's Spirit. It's unseen. It's uncontrollable. It comes and goes when it wants. I learned about wind at a Sunday school rally day. I was a little kid in Sturgis, Michigan. On rally day, all of the kids who came got a tag that they would put their name on, and then there were instructions on the card. And then each card was attached to a helium balloon, and when the time came, everyone let theirs go. Now, wherever they ended up landing, the instructions on the card said, "Put this in a mail back to our church." And so for a number of weeks, we would get reports of, oh, there were 15 in this week from as far away as Flint, Michigan. And we would wait and wait and wait for another one to come in. You know, some went to Canada, some went to other places. Mine went to New York somewhere. I don't know where exactly, but somewhere in New York, and that was pretty impressive. From the west side of Michigan all the way to New York. And it wasn't the furthest. I don't remember where the furthest was, but I know I wasn't the furthest. I learned about how something unseen can be so powerful, so uncontrollable. You know, the balloons went in a wide range of places. I like the metaphor of wind and of geese because they're big. They're big. When the Spirit comes to us as a goose, it is a call to us to join that V formation. It's not just for us, but it's for us to be a part of something bigger. There's much wisdom in that metaphor. Let me show you what I mean. The geese rotate leadership. When the lead goose is tired, another will take its place. The flying formation creates an uplift for each other member of the formation. This increases the flock's range by 71%. When one goose gets sick or unwell, two fall out of our formation with it to follow it down. They'll stay with the straggler until it's able to fly again. These geese at the rear do all the honking. They're announcing that all is well, encouraging on the others. Imagine if you were a rebel goose. Spirit is a powerful thing, uncontrollable, yet it is pure grade love. And it calls us to soar with it. Sally was growing up. She was ready to go away to college. Her mother had struggled to care for her for years since her father had died a few years earlier. She did everything she could to make Sally's life easier. But now Sally was going to be on her own. And it was tough. She wasn't going to be able to help every time like she had. Sally also had her own reservations, being away from her mom, leaving her alone. And she also worried about making her own way. All of this was new to her. As she was packing and got all ready, her mother came up to her room and said, "Remember how you used to tug on my apron strings when you wanted something, and I'd see to what you were after? Well, I'm going to be there for you in your heart, but it'll be up to you to listen to what I had told you. I can't kiss your hurts when you fall down and skin your knee, or quiet you when the big storms come rolling in, but I'll be as close as a penny in your pocket when you need me. If you are hurting, you can feel me close." Well, Sally went to the bus station, got on the bus, and as she was leaving, she began to have tears in her eyes. She reached into her pocket and she found a handkerchief neatly folded that she knew came from her mother. She noticed that the corner was tied, just like her mom had tied those for her years ago with her milk money in it. And she knew that her mother would always be with her. That's how it is with God and us. As powerful as a hurricane, as gentle as a summer breeze, God is always there for us. He's always there. And God calls us to join that formation of love for others. To fly with God's Spirit wherever that goes. And a noisome, loud, sometimes annoying calls that surround us. To follow Him in love and in service. May God's Spirit empower us to follow, to love, to be the Spirit followers in Christ.